But I want to move on now to this other issue, which is absolutely fascinating, the campus chaos in the U.S., and especially what's going on at Harvard, where President Claudine Gay, she had that train wreck testimony on anti-Semitism, but now she has gone and been basically caught out, according to a lot of allegations, for plagiarism, including her PhD thesis. Yet Harvard is standing by her. How rotten is Harvard and the American Academy right now?
Well, it's really unfortunate because it's a top university in the entire world, and it looks very bad right now. I can't imagine what the Jewish people and Jewish students think about that university. It's appalling, even sitting here as a Christian. I can't imagine what it looks like to go to that school or to be, an alumni of that school, even to think of that school in such a high regard, which we used to. But I'll tell you this, there's a reason that UPenn got rid of Liz McGill. There's a reason that she was touchable and Claudine Gay is not. Let's be honest here. It's not going to look good for Harvard to put somebody out of a job that fits the narrative in the bill and, the box checking of a Claudine Gay. So I think no matter what comes out about her, even if she murders puppies on her spare time, I believe that she's going to be protected and shielded. And the number of faculty members in the hundreds that have come out in support of her, also appalling. There's nothing we can do about that. But I will say this to Americans that are looking at Harvard and parents that are looking at maybe spending a lot of money on that tuition bill, maybe look elsewhere, because that school doesn't stand for the things you probably wish it stood for.
Well, and I tell you what, too, some of the cleanup efforts here that Harvard has been trying on this here after that anti-Semitism testimony, I don't know if you saw this, but Claudine Gay went to a menorah lighting and was photographed there with a tiki torch, which to me seems like a pretty interesting bit of symbolism there, given some of the controversies around that little bit of yard lighting equipment.
Oh, there's tone deaf, and then there's that. A Republican would certainly never be able to get away with this, or a conservative would never be able to get away with that. They would say that it invoked the spirit of the KKK or something like that. But, again, they're working on their optics and their visuals, but it's the snake eating its own tail here. I don't think anybody bought that phony display. And I think that her testimony, that stands alone and it stands by itself, and it's rotten to its very core. So Harvard's got a big problem on its hands. All of these elite universities, quite frankly, have problems on their hands, not just for this anti-Semitism and what's been happening in the last couple of months, but just to their very core. They seek to indoctrinate students and not educate them. So it's not going to be enough to remove a couple of presidents. You're going to have to go to the very core of these elite universities and clean house if you want some change.
Absolutely right. And yet, on this whole Gaza-Israel anti-Semitism issue, I keep getting shocked by things that I never thought I would see, like, for example, the Manhattan Bridge in New York being shut down by a group of protesters for, you guessed it, Queers for Palestine. Now, what do you make of this? Well, I would say it's a fairly self-defeating protest.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lick of sense, but leftism and wokeism in the U.S. and around the world, as we know, makes no sense. So these individuals, they call themselves Queers for Palestine, but they could be queers for climate change, or queers for Occupy Wall Street, or they, thems for this, that, and the other. It really doesn't matter what the cause is. These are individuals who simply want attention. These are individuals that simply want to cause trouble and mayhem and chaos, and they'll use whatever social justice movement of the day to hide under as a guise for what they really want, which is to satisfy their narcissistic itch to have somebody pay attention to them. So it makes no sense, but wokeism at its core makes no sense.
Well, exactly right. But speaking of narcissism, how narcissistic do you have to be a White House staffer whose job is to serve the U.S. president and then to hold a protest out front of the White House? This happened overnight in the U.S., and we see all of these White House staffers dressed up. Half of them are wearing masks, half of them are wearing keffiyehs, which I think is absolutely perfect. Surely, though, you can't have White House staffers going out and publicly demonstrating against the man they're working for.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I do love to see it, though, because this is another instance of the snake eating its own tail. And unfortunately, while Republicans are certainly divided, Democrats are divided as well. And I think that we can all come together in the United States under one common theme, is that we don't like the Biden administration, maybe for differing reasons. But I think it's very interesting to see the radical base of the Democrat Party speak out. You know, that was ignited with the squad. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to have a lot of chaos on their hands. And it's going to be very interesting to see which way this Democrat Party goes. If I was a betting person, I would say probably further and further to the left.
Exactly right, Tomi Lahren. I think you've nailed it. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great Christmas, and we'll see you in 2024.